Good morning, everybody. Welcome. My name's Denise Hill and I'm the Head of Engagement at Visit Scotland. I'm delighted to be your host for this morning's webinar event. Before we begin in earnest, there are a few practical matters I need to cover off. So thank you very much for signing up for the event. When you did so, you will have noticed that we were explicitly asking if you were happy to have your image or your name appear on screen. This is because we are videoing this session and we'll do so and post it up afterwards on VisitScotland.org. So if you have opted there not to agree to your image and your name being on screen, then please at this point click out, click to leave the meeting, and what we will do is provide a link to the webinar after the event. So if you're not happy for your name and your image to be on that videoed version, please leave now and we will provide a link to that. As audience members, please do ensure that your cameras and your mics and any reactions on Teams are all switched off. We do have the chat functionality on, however, and that will remain on. We do have 10 minutes of Q&A at the end of the session. So please, by all means, if you have a question, don't put your hand up, don't use that functionality, but do just type that into the chat functionality. And we will try in the 10 minutes to cover all the questions that have been put forward. Okay, so with that now covered, once again, I'd just like to say we're delighted to have you join us this morning to look at an overview of an exciting new campaign that Visit Scotland is launching at the end of this month. This will see us really ramping up our international marketing programme now, all aimed at driving up demand and supporting the recovery of Scottish tourism. It is a campaign that will not only drive up demand and interest with consumers direct, but it's also, and you'll hear about this very shortly, aimed at providing confidence and also support for those travel intermediaries who are our partners, so that they too can benefit from the increased demand we hope to generate. With us today, we have Gwen Reyes, our Senior Manager in the International Marketing Department, who's going to speak to you about our brand new Scotland is Calling campaign. Following on from Gwen, we will have Leslie McIver, who's our social media manager, who is going to give you some insights and some tips on how you can use that important channel to benefit from and make the most of this campaign. And then similarly, we have Patrick O'Shaughnessy, who is our industry development manager, who's going to talk about digital discoverability, digital skills, which will support businesses, individual businesses also, to be able to make use of this campaign. So without any further ado, I will hand over. I'll ask my colleagues to switch off their mics and their cameras. Also, all participants, remember, as I'd said earlier on, do please make sure that you've switched off your mics and your cameras. And at this point, we'll do likewise, and I will hand over to Gwen Reyes to take us through this exciting new campaign overview. Thanks, Gwen.
That's great. Thanks, Denise, and welcome everyone to this update on how we plan to get international visitors excited about coming to Scotland. So our aim, as you know, is to help Scottish tourism recover as quickly as possible in a responsible way, both through our UK market activity, but today's webinar is really focusing on what we're going to be doing to attract those international visitors. And it's critical that we continue to position Scotland as a responsible, welcoming and safe year-round destination. So why are international visitors so important? Well, they are critical to enabling us to build back responsibly. Their average spend is much higher than a UK visitor, 4 times as much for a US visitor and twice as much for a European. But this pandemic has told us how important it is to spread the risk across a number of international markets so we can mitigate against changing air corridors. And we want everyone to get excited about welcoming visitors to Scotland, from our partners and intermediaries in the various markets to yourselves. We've all got a part to play in sharing our stories about Scotland. And we'll also roll out this campaign in the UK to provide global synergies. So whilst I'm focusing on the international activity today, there will continue to be activity in the UK. But before I go into the detail of the campaign, I just want to share a couple of key insights into the importance of what we're doing. Scotland has a relatively low share of total outbound tourism from our key international markets. And on this chart, there's quite a lot going on, but I think it really displays well what we're talking about. So the various flags you'll recognise. The size of the bubble shows the overall value of that market to Scotland. So US is our biggest market, Germany our second biggest market. If you look at the x-axis here, you can see that the majority of those flags fall in less than 1%. So less than 1% of outbound travel is actually coming to Scotland. So there's a huge opportunity for us. Even if we increase that outbound travel by 0.5% coming to Scotland, it will have a huge impact on the size of that bubble. And then the y-axis here is really rankings that we've given to each of the countries in terms of their average spend per head, how many regions they visit when they come here, and how many nights they stay. And that allows us to prioritise which of the markets we target and helps to inform which markets we're targeting when. So just a little bit of insight there. But we also know that the planning and booking, things don't start with the planning and booking process. People are accumulating ideas, getting inspiration about locations, destinations that they can visit all the time. And it's this passive accumulation of inspiration that we really aim to start with this activity. We know that they're passively collecting that information for up to 5 years, even longer in some cases in our long haul markets, about coming to Scotland. And they're sort of, we've seen people actually have physical folders that they'll put, magazine articles or information about things they've seen on TV. They begin to gather this all together. And this goes on for a long time before they actively start planning and then booking holidays. So this activity is really focusing on this, what we call the idea accumulation and concept forming stages. So really important that we begin to position Scotland and share that inspiration of what a holiday in Scotland can offer. And that's what we mean by international demand building. So it's part of the Scottish Tourism Recovery Activity announced back in March by the Scottish Government. And it breaks down into a 6.5 million spend for campaign activity and a 1.5 million fund for our inbound operator collaborative marketing. So the objectives are obviously to support the recovery of Scottish tourism and make Scotland that first choice destination for international visitors when travel is possible again, encouraging those forward bookings into 2022 and beyond. We really want to restore the connectivity that we had prior to 2019. It was going in a really good direction. We want to build on that and grow on that. And obviously promote responsible tourism itineraries through marketing support for DMCs and inbound tour operators. And this will be the focus of the marketing fund. I'm not going to say too much about this. We launched the fund yesterday, and it aims to help establish DMCs and operators promote responsible tourism itineraries in our priority international markets. Guidance launched yesterday. The fund opens a week on Thursday and is open for a week. And you can find more information on VisitScotland.org. I've got the link there. So moving on to the campaign itself. So every destination is going to be doing the same as us and trying to get valuable international visitors to come to their destinations first. So we need to stand out in a very cluttered environment. Research has shown that the pandemic has accelerated trends that we're already seeing. They're looking for unique experiences. They want to connect with nature and local communities. They want to be able to explore cities, have walking tours, enjoy the food and drink, the wellness aspect of things, getting off the grid, all really important. And it's something that Scotland can answer in terms of these different emotional drivers for travel. We're really well positioned to answer those needs. People are yearning for a place that offers them what they've been missing over the last 18 months. And that's why we can say to them, Scotland is calling. It's an emotive call to action that works across lots of different themes, lots of different products, really easy for different regions, different sectors to capitalize on this. And it's a very simple message, a very strong call to action. In terms of international work, it's very adaptable for cultural nuances and also works well across lots of different media. So to give you an idea of how we'll execute it, I've got the US script here for you. We've got different variations for the different markets, but it gives you an idea. So Scotland is calling. It's calling, echoing through stone with tales of the past. It's calling, deep in the glens, high above the peaks. It's calling, from freshly opened casks just out of hibernation, and from lively cities bursting with flavour. It's calling, over fairways, bunkers and greens, and on coastlines welcoming new and old friends from across the sea. It's calling from another world, but you can still hear it because it's louder than ever. Now is the time to answer. Scotland is calling. So you can imagine already the different scenes, the different imagery, and how we can execute this across lots of different variations, products, sector and regions, making sure that integral to all the footage is responsible tourism, diversity and inclusivity. Really important for Scotland. But it's not just about great creative, we need to spread the word as well. So what we're looking is producing a series of films. We talk about hero films, which is very much that inspirational hook to get Scotland into that consideration set where emotion is key. Hub content then allows people to build their holiday around the hooks. It provides reassurance that there'll be plenty for them to do on a 5, 6, 7 day holiday, particularly for those longer haul markets. And then the help content is a bit more functional, and when people move to VisitScotland.com once they're into that active planning stage. So there'll be 3 facets of activity: the brand building always on activity, where we promote the hero and the hub films and work with PR, digital and social platforms. There'll then be high impact bursts of activity, which will be working with content partnerships with different media and also possibly some out of home activity. And then activity to aid holiday planning and conversion, partnerships with OTAs and tour operators, as well as the inbound operator fund. So in terms of timing, we are here in September. The hero film is just finalising. We'll be finishing that off this week, and the hub films are in production. Stakeholder and industry engagement, this is partly what today is about. And then we're looking to launch at the end of September on the digital and social channels with the always on activity, and the burst activity will start coming in during Q4. So always on activity, it's about lead generation. So we are able to follow up through our own channels, through our emails program, which we know is really important. We'll be sending the films out through connected TV and digital video distribution, where we can, using sequential messaging to build that picture and story about Scotland, and using paid social channels across the different markets. As well as the direct activity, OTAs are really important. It's vital that we make sure Scotland appears where people are already searching. So in North America and Europe, we'll be working with Expedia, building on the successful partnership that we've developed already there. And in China, we'll be working with Ctrip. The burst and high impact activity is then really looking at those broadcast partners and the PR amplification, where we can really get the message out and make some noise, create some buzz, generate some PR activity that our colleagues in the PR team can build on. We'll also be working with our intermediary partners, helping them to sell Scotland and providing assets and information to them. Aviation partners, we're already in contact with a number of our airlines that previously flew direct into Scotland, and they are very keen to get those routes up and running again where they've had to pull back on them, as well as tactical and contextual social posts. So these are just some of the platforms that we're using on the right here. And then in terms of owned and earned activity, by that we mean owned channels. There are email channels, our social platforms, and obviously the content on VisitScotland.com. They will really reflect what we're, the activity and the messaging that we're putting out. We'll be regularly seeding stories to our key media outlets and working with those intermediary partners, as well as yourselves, the Scottish tourism industry, and the aviation and ferry partners. We work to a content calendar so that we can align the messaging that goes out under the umbrella of Scotland is Calling. So for October, we have responsible tourism, November moving into winter breaks, December events and festivals, touring in January, outdoor adventures, and then family trips from March onwards. So how can you get involved? Tell us your stories. It's really important that we have a steady flow of content and information. The rest of this webinar will give you some practical tips, but from my perspective, just let us know what's going on, what's out there. What are you doing for responsible tourism? What are the only in Scotland experiences that you offer that will help us stand out from competitor destinations? The PR team want to hear about what's new, opening packages and deals, local characters and ambassadors. What are the top tips for your local areas? What's your Scotland is Calling message? Share it on your social channels, get everyone around you sharing what part of Scotland calls to them and how visitors can experience it for themselves. Use the hashtag Scotland is Calling and incorporate it into your own messaging. So now I'm going to hand over to Leslie, our social media manager, and she will share some of her insights and tips.
So hi everyone, I'm Leslie McIver, the social media performance manager at Visit Scotland. And like Gwen said, I'll show you a couple of practical tips and things to do on social media. Next slide, please, Gwen. So as Gwen's already touched on, that consumer journey where people are passively consuming cultural media, this is where social media is an excellent source of this. And this is what we really leverage on our consumer channels at Visit Scotland. This is where we are trying to plant that seed of Scotland. And there was a study done by Instagram all about people who travel and where they go and how they use the platforms of Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp. And Instagram found that quite a lot of people are coming to that platform for inspiration before they even know that they want to take a trip. And that's exactly what we are trying to do on our social media and why this campaign is ideal for social media. Those big stories, the imagery that you can post on social media just helps plant that seed of Scotland in someone's mind before they even know that they are wanting to take a trip to Scotland. And Instagram have reported that the hashtag travel has been used over 497 million times. So there is a big appetite for this travel related content on these platforms. And it's also a place where your friends and family are sharing pictures, stories, which ultimately are kind of recommendations without knowing that they're recommendations. Next slide, please, Gwen. And that brings me on to the second point, which is all about social proof. Now, social proof can come in the form of reviews, comments, or user-generated content. And it's also things like engagement on posts as well. So social proof is a signal to people to give them confidence or a sense of trust. So when someone is always sharing the same location, it makes people think, oh, what is it about this location or what is it about this product? The reviews, that gives people insight as to how did they find that thing or location. And it also means when someone close to you or someone that you know or a friend, when they give this kind of review, it means so much more to you because you're like, okay, I know that person, I know their lifestyle, I know that I could see myself there as well. And it's also the same with engagement on posts. If you see a video that's got millions or thousands of views, you're like, why has this got thousands of views? You're kind of compelled to watch it. You know, when you see a video that's only got a few, you're maybe not as compelled. So sharing user-generated content, these reviews on your social channels can all help with this social proof and give people confidence in your product or location or whatever it is that you're selling. And that's what we really do on our consumer channels as well. We predominantly use user-generated content because it's all fine and well as the tourist board saying, look how great Scotland is. But if we share someone's image saying, look, this person says it's great, this person had a good time, look, imagine yourself doing this thing here. Social proof then becomes a real solid thing to use to sell your product. Next slide, please, Gwen. So sharing assets is a big thing as well. And when we do campaigns, like Gwen has already said, we have lots of different videos that can be used. And what Facebook and Twitter have is this cross-posting availability. And this is where you can share assets behind the scenes. So you'll have two Facebook pages that can have a relationship with each other. And you can then, if we upload a video and you also want that video, we can just send it to you through Facebook. You don't have to download a video, upload a video. We'll just send the file to you through Facebook and it'll appear within your page. You can then write your own post and share it at your own time and make sure that it fits your tone of voice for your business. And this is a really excellent way of sharing assets between businesses and different pages. Because one of the great things about it is this consolidated view counter, and that is a big indicator of social proof. So if we were to post a video and have 10,000 views on it, and we then shared this video with you, it too would also have those 10,000 views. And if everyone is sharing a video that is being used by the cross-posting method, then the views all sit together, consolidated. We're all sharing the same asset. I think a few people are not seeing the slides. It might just be a wee bit slow to kind of catch up. So I'll take my time on this slide in case it comes back. So this is a really great way of sharing it. It needs to be, okay, great. Someone said it's coming through. It's maybe just a real lag that we're having here. So yeah, this way of sharing is a really great way of having that social proof without individual businesses having to do anything. Any video that we post that we own on our Facebook or Twitter page, we can happily share in this way here. There'll be more about this after the webinar to make these relationships happen. But it's something that you can even do between DMOs or businesses, is share this way and use that social proof to your advantage. Next slide, please, Gwen. I'll just kind of pause because I think there might be a wee, and just in case this one hasn't come on as well. But the next point is all about thumb-stopping content. This term was used when I was at a meeting with Facebook a few years ago. And it is because you're always thinking mobile first. And they were reporting that, perfect, all good, great. Perfect, this one, they were reporting that you have about 1.57 seconds to capture someone's attention as they're scrolling. So this is what they mean by thumb-stopping content. People that are mindlessly just scrolling through Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it might be, you need to have something that is worth someone to stop their thumb and focus on that piece of content that you've just shared. And that takes us back to that people just passively consuming media without even knowing it. There'll be things that are going through their timeline that they are consuming and it's going into their mind, they don't even know it. So that's why what to do is to take up as much space on that mobile screen all the time. So always think mobile first, because that is where most people are going to be using these social media platforms. And if you can take up more space on the screen, that gives you more time to get people's attention. So using an image that is either square or 4x5 will always take up more space than a landscape image, and it gives more people time to engage. When you use the images from our digital media library at Visit Scotland, there's a preset section for downloading. It's called the Instagram Square Top. Now what this will do is it will give you a square crop of any image, and it'll central the focus point of the image, and you can use this on any platform. Twitter has recently had an update where they will optimize the post size for the image size. So where it used to be a landscape image, if you're posting a longer portrait, a 4x5 or a square, your tweet will then take up more room on the timeline and therefore give you more opportunities for people to engage. And also comment on other people's thumb-stopping content. So if you see, like we posted a picture just the other day there, and on Instagram it's got 90,000 likes. So this is going to have probably coming up towards about reaching 1 million people. And by all means, as a business, go on there and see if that image or if that post, or are there any comments that are relevant to your business. Comment as your business, and your Instagram tag will go along with this post. Every time it's served, your business will be there, and it's a really great way of kind of riding on the coattails of other thumb-stopping content. You don't always have to create it yourself. If someone else is already doing it and it's relevant for your business to be involved in that, by all means get involved. Next slide, please, Gwen. And then this takes us on to the hashtags. So for this campaign, it's hashtag Scotland is calling, and we'll be using most of using it in most of our posts, and we'll be encouraging consumers to use it as well. Hashtags can really help increase your visibility, but you can also use it to find conversations that you want to join in. So if you search for a hashtag on any of the platforms, the posts that come back are always going to be the publicly available posts. You'll never be able to see any kind of private posts unless you as an individual are following, not as a business page. And have a look there and see if there's any of these thumb-stopping posts that you think, actually, that's an amazing picture, that's probably going to reach. Let me see if I can engage with that. And then when you're using hashtags, we always kind of follow this pyramid of hashtags to make sure that you're getting the right hashtags, because what you don't want is something that is too generic, that is, you're never going to be able to actually see anyone. And you don't want anything that's too specific, because then there's only going to be a handful of people following them. So we kind of take this layered approach of using hashtags on our posts. So the campaign hashtag will sit kind of underneath any kind of countrywide hashtags like Visit Scotland, hashtag Scotland. We'll be using the campaign hashtag at that level there. And remember that it's not, when you use one of our campaign hashtags, it's not just for our attention. It's for all the people that we're telling to look at this hashtag and use this hashtag. When they click on it, they'll see your business post as well. So these are just a couple of social media points I thought would be useful for this campaign. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Patrick now. Thanks for listening.
So we're those are brilliant, Leslie. Really enjoyed that, and some really practical stuff that people can apply. I want to add to that and look at some 6 further practical tips that you can use to make sure that you make the best value out of Scotland is Calling and in the activity that we're doing. And that's primarily around being discoverable and being bookable. Now, looking at you as attendees, there's a real range of businesses that are on this call, but I do want everyone to at least go away with at least one practical tip that they can actually will jog their memory or allow them to do something back of the office that will make a difference and make better use of Scotland is Calling. So the 6 practical tips that I'm looking at is a list there. We'll go through these one by one. But what I also want to do is just set a little bit of context. And I apologize if I'm teaching people to suck eggs, but I think it's these next 2 slides will help me sort of throughout my presentation. So we look at how we distribute or reach our market in two very distinct ways. There's direct, which is basically your shop front, the website, or indirect, which is through online travel agents or using intermediaries. And intermediaries, we've got our own expert teams within Visit Scotland. If that's a channel to market you want more information on, then reach out to them. Their contact details are on a slide further on. So, but for today, I'm going to talk primarily around the website and online travel agents, the things that you can do around those. So 6 tips. So the next slide, which is very much about Google, and I thought this was a good way of remembering some of the acronyms that they use. So this is really good news. MUM is a new update that Google's introduced just back in June, and it means multitask unifier model. So I've probably lost half of the audience at this point, but why am I even talking about it? So what is really good about this is that Google, in trying to make sure that people have the best possible experience when they search, have implemented this update, which allows them to cut down on the number of multiple searches that people will do in the future. So what does that mean to us as holiday or tourism businesses? It means that when someone might be looking at a holiday in Scotland, Google will try and think, well, okay, if they're looking for a holiday, they might be looking for flights. They might also be interested in transport. They might also be interested in things to do. They might also be interested in accommodation, where to stay. And they will try and represent all of that within that one single search. So what that creates is a great level playing field and a lot of opportunity for every business to be shown. And the other really important element of this is that they also indicate that they will be able to translate that in 72 different languages. So hugely important for us as a tourism business. Let me reassure those businesses that have gone to the trouble and investment of trying to of building their own particular language sites. This is still going to be important from a ranking perspective, but also from a customer experience. But what it does mean is that those smaller businesses who don't have the time or money to invest in those sort of translations, this levels the field a little bit more and gives them an opportunity to reach out to an international audience. But also what therefore means is that for everybody, the other an acronym that I've got there is EAT will remain really, really important. And EAT stands for expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. In other words, you as a business need to, if you're a paddleboarder, that you and supply those sort of experiences, that you bring out the fact that you're an expert in this type of delivery. You also have authority in terms of that maybe you've got the local papers are referencing you and linking to your site, or even your own industry colleagues are also linking to you because you've got that, and it helps your authority. And trustworthiness is double faceted in that Google are measuring how that you don't game them, in other words, stuffing keywords. So that's very much, if you do that, that's really a no-no, and your trustworthy rating really goes down. And the second part of trustworthiness is around, do you actually deliver what you say you deliver? And the big bit of that, and this is something a lot of people don't realize in terms of your ranking, is that reviews play a huge part of that. So those are the two things that will sort of feed behind what I'm going to talk about over the next 6 tips that I'm presenting to you. Oh yes, and in terms of one thing I do want to is that every one of us either consciously or unconsciously think of our marketing in terms of these 3 things: the amount of time that you've got to deliver and work on digital marketing, the actual skills you've got, and the amount of money you're prepared to invest in spending either a resource, spending time on digital marketing, or actually going out and buying something. So every one of you, either consciously or unconsciously, have a sweet spot that says, this is what I will do in terms of acquiring new customers. And that's very relevant throughout these tips. So my first tip is around Bookable. And one of the things that's really strongly come out over the period that COVID has been with us and still is, the research from all the big guys, the McKinseys, the Forbes, and the Deloittes, they basically said that online transactions have gone through the roof over this last period of time. Those people who previously were not comfortable to buy online, have been forced to buy online, have realized the benefits, and will now remain as buyers online. So it's here to stay. And I think just very recently I was on a TripAdvisor webinar, and someone came up with an analogy which I thought was really, really strong, that being bookable or not being bookable it's like inviting someone around to your house and then locking the door. So if you've got all those listings, if you've got listings on TripAdvisor, if you've got a listing on booking.com and you're not online bookable, that's the basic effect that a visitor feels that if you don't have an online bookable. So it is very much something that you should have. And what, in order to help you out with any of this, is this something that you're challenged with? We've also got a webinar, the link is there below, to help you out in terms of how you work through your website in terms of its user experience, and where Bookable plays a big part of that. So that's a really good help for you going forward. The other element is reassurance, that despite the fact that there is so much more information online, people are still looking for clear information about safety, about hygiene, and this is something that the big customer platforms have realized, and they now give you opportunities to add extra information. You'll see here the TripAdvisor have got a safety element that every one of you should update and make sure that your listing has got those extra health and safety elements. The other part is the reassurance that you can give people on your website itself. It's amazing as you go and search around the country, the amount of websites that it's not very obvious how you can visit with confidence. And this is a really good example, this here, which Dynamic Earth have done, something that perhaps you might have a look at. And we also have, this is a site in Dumfries, and I'm going to show it on the next slide in terms of what they've, or rather it's in Sky, what they've done and the actual goal that they've got in terms of the reviews that they've asked for. But again, if reputation is something you struggle with, there is we've added a webinar on VisitScotland.org, which really is useful for you to work through to so why it's important and how you can make best use of it. But what I had said is for this particular website is they've gone and got those reviews that says that their property has been really clean, that it was as if it was brand new. Those types of reviews are like gold dust at the moment, and those are the things that you should be actively reaching out to your visitors to give you those reviews. And if you do get them, make sure you're communicating those on your website. The third point is Google My Business. You need to make sure that Google loves you. So as a hygiene factor, verify your Google My Business account, and then optimize it. Make sure any new hours are added. Make sure your phone number is there. Make sure your address. Just go through it all in detail. And Google's also give you an opportunity to update safety measures, as you'll see on that right-hand image on the screen. A little pro tip is, there's an SEO website that allows you to check what your top 25 keywords are on your homepage. Go to that URL, get your list. They'll email it to you automatically. It's free. And what you should do is, when you've got your description open on Google My Business, check that those keywords are also referenced within that in a natural way. Don't try and stuff them but that then will help you rank better for a local search. And online travel agents, I know it's contentious, and I know it's been a difficult time and over the period in terms of what's happened with online travel agents. But what you do need to consider is that they are the biggest customer websites in the world. They have got a very loyal following of visitors who don't leave those sites at all. So if you're not on those, then you are not visible. And the other element to that is that yes, you need to sort of balance that with that, back to that slide I did on the cost of acquisition. So have you got the time? Have you got the money? Have you got the skills to actually get new customers, particularly from abroad? And this is where an online travel agent comes to play. You can actually get new customers that you don't have to pay for their booking or the effort in getting them to book until such time as the actual book. So that's their value. The key things you must do, though, when you are getting when you are taking a listing on online travel agents, make sure it's additional traffic. So test and try which platform is best for you. And critically, that when you do get a booking, you look to retain the engagement with those visitors so that they come direct to you the next time they look for a booking. But also make sure that when you use online travel agents, you have a clear idea of what your cost of sales is. So you don't sell in there with commission and end up not making a profit. That's really, really critical. And fundamentally, that you check the terms and conditions, that you're happy with those. Again, we've done a really good informative article on VisitScotland.org that might be able to help you with that. Our fifth is a very quick, go back and look at your analytics. You will find that your traffic will have changed from before COVID. So do a comparative over the years, checking what happened, what your data was like in 2019, check what your data is like just now. And check, so even if it's these three things, check where your geographical origins, what those are like. Is there different searches coming now from North America than was previous? And look at your top performing pages and just ask yourselves, are those the ones that I would expect to be there? Are those the ones, or are there pages that are not performing that I would expect to be there? And then just ask the question, well, why not? What are the things I can do to improve it? And then just referencing Leslie's, that mobile, I think we will find, just even having that knowledge of how huge mobile has become over the last while will make you think a little bit more in terms of how your content is. And it's fairly easy to check, going down to analytics, having a look at the site mobile and checking what your percentage is. You can see here quite significant for at 61%. And again, for those of you who are a little bit cautious or would like to increase your knowledge, we've done a really excellent webinar on Google Analytics. A last and final point to you is, and it's one that we all struggle as industry and as businesses, and it's very much around that cost of acquisition, having the time to go and do fresh content. And please, I suppose it's a plea, utilize what Scotland is doing in terms of the huge activity that's out there, to make an effort to do some new content, because that's what underpins a lot of that eat. In respect, it has to be, being fresh really helps your ranking. Utilize this new thinking, this new drive, this new opportunity for international business. Use the digital media library, some fantastic imagery in there for you that is free to be used. Two things that jump to mind for me that could really help in terms of content and refreshing is our visitors, particularly international visitors, are really going to be interested to know what things can be done. There is a worry that there is enough for people to do when they arrive here. So, and also from a content refresh element, you have a look at yours. The example I've got here on the right is someone who's done it very simply. They've thought about it. They've just represented what the visitor might want to do in an image format and just link through to other businesses who provide those additional things to do. The other element, which is very, very strongly represented in terms of what we as an organization and we as a country, but also is responsible tourism. And one of the things that reading a report that Booking.com brought out very recently is that there is a lot of demand for responsible tourism from our visitors. There are also a lot of products that we have as a country that deliver on that. But what we're not good at is actually informing people about that. And that's something, if we look at our website, that's one piece of new content that we probably could easily do. So again, if that's something that creating good content is something you struggle with, we've done some webinars. There's a link here below to part 1, and there's a part 2 also that you can have a look at. So that's my final tips. One thing I would like to say to you, it's an offer that we have from Visit Scotland to every one of you that are attending today, is an opportunity to take advantage of a digital review. And the link to that is being posted just now on chat. What I would say to you is the digital review will cover off the fundamental basics of your digital footprint. It will check that you've left no opportunities and of basic things that needs to be done in order that you are discoverable, and we'll provide a report to you that our relationship managers will also talk you through. The only thing we will ask you to do is that you act on those, and we will have a conversation with you afterwards to see how you got on with those actions that we proposed. So that's our offer to you, and I think we'll now move into a question and answer session.
Thanks, Patrick. Perfect timing on behalf of my colleagues there. That's wonderful. And if I may ask Patrick and Gwen and Leslie to open up their cameras and join me as we look at the question and answer session now. If you have any questions, as I said earlier, do pop them into the chat function. We have several in already. If I may start with you, Gwen. One of the questions, a pre-submitted question, was relating to the title of the session today, and our title has been about international demand driving. The question came in, but what about UK and Scottish domestic at this important time for those markets? What are we doing on that front? Can you maybe enlighten us a wee bit how that sits relative to the Scotland is Calling campaign, Gwen?
Yeah, of course, Denise, and a really important question. Yeah, as I said in my opening slide, UK has been absolutely vital for us. It is effectively our bread and butter in terms of our visitors. They come year round, they give us the seasonal spread, they give us the regional spread, and quite often we'll experience different products. They don't spend as much as our international visitors, but absolutely they're critical to the full picture. So whilst the focus today has been on international, it's absolutely not to forget UK. We will continue to work with the UK. And in fact, we did a campaign over the summer, which is an activity we would normally do, but just recognising that we need to work harder to get those visitors to consider Scotland. And a lot of people that have never previously been to Scotland, or indeed people that have discovered new places. And hopefully they will continue to realise that Scotland can offer a valid holiday choice for them. We will be aligning the UK activity, so whilst the funding from the Scottish Government is purely for international activity, we'll be using the core Visit Scotland budget for UK activity under that Scotland is Calling umbrella. So similar messaging, but different pace. The UK audience is a lot more familiar with Scotland, so we'll be showing different scenes for them, slightly faster pace and more experiential in terms of what we're offering the UK visitor. But we feel that Scotland is Calling works for those south of the border and actually Scots as well. So we feel it is a creative proposition that can work across all the different markets.
Super, thank you. That sounds perfect. One of the questions just come in was about the digital media library that I think both Patrick and Leslie mentioned there, and we've popped up into the chat where you'll be able to find that. But I wonder if we could just move on this slide, because we have a useful background slide that perhaps we can have up while we're talking through the questions and answers, which has got a whole heap of links on there for you that will take you through to useful resources at Visit Scotland. I don't know if you've still got control there, Patrick. Would you be able to move that on? Another question that we have relates to sharing content. And this is perhaps a good question both for Leslie and again for Patrick too. Pre-submitted question asking that one of the biggest takeouts from the slides and from the tips given by the team today has been about making sure that you're sharing your content, come up with these great ideas, examples of what you're doing, and share that content. Where do you go to do that, we're asked, and is there any steer? Where can we look for a steer on what works best and what will make it most likely for Visit Scotland to adopt and to use and to share? Leslie, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, so if you are wanting to use our assets, like we've said, that Visit Scotland Digital Media Library is the place to go. And in the search bar, if you just put Scotland as colon, all the assets that relate to this campaign will have that tag, so they'll all show up. And the downloading is quite easy from there. And if you're then sharing your own content and you want to be part of the conversation, using that hashtag is vital for other people to see it and for us to see it. Now, if you're then sharing content, your own images as part of this campaign using the hashtag, and you're wanting us to potentially use it, we have a little page on .org. Let me see if I can get it just now while I'm chatting, where we tell you what we look for. I've got it. You got it? Is it on there? I was trying to quickly glance there. To what works on our channels. So we have a particular style that works on our channels, and that's what you should be looking for on your channels, because what works on ours might not work on yours. We are top of the funnel, right at the start of the journey, that real inspirational led stuff. You might be a little bit further down, so you should always kind of find what works for your consumer. And then I think I just saw a question coming up, how to get involved in that cross-posting, so I can answer that quickly just now as well. I'm going to create a form which will be sent out, because on Facebook what you have to do is create a relationship between the two pages. So this is a link that is sent between our Visit Scotland page and your business page. And once that relation is set up, we can send you any video with the click of one button, very easy. But I'll get this form sent out, and you can just put your details in there, and then I'll get back to you on setting up this relationship. For Twitter, it's a little bit easier. We just need your handle. I'll type it in and the video will appear for you. So you'll get more information about that.
Super, that's great. There's actually a very directly for you type of question here, Patrick, around mum, how to get involved in mum that you talked about earlier.
Okay, so it's brand new, and it's the previous iteration was called BERT, which was brought out in 2019. And what they tend to do it's artificial learning. So they are applying it from their own knowledge. So as I said, what you need to do, what the reassurance to you is that going forward, probably if you're a small business, is that your opportunity to reach international visitors directly using your website will be improved naturally. But what you need to make sure is that you're improving your expertise, your authority, and your trustworthiness. And the main tools for doing that is fresh content, reassuring people, getting reviews. Those tips that I gave throughout the webinar will help you.
Great, thank you for that. Question for Gwen. Early on in the chat was a question about how to reach out to special interest groups through websites. So for instance, the example given was US golfers. How can we help and direct people on that front, Gwen? I think you're
Sorry, just take myself off mute. So yes, so the The golf is really important, one of the really important sectors for us, particularly for some of our long haul markets. We have a team where we specifically promote that. So we actively work with golf tour operators in the different markets, as well as we'll be featuring St Andrews on the odd course in the US ad that I read out, looking ahead to the 150th anniversary of the Open next year as well. So it's going to be a great time for golf. The eyes of the world will be on Scotland again. So certainly get in touch with us if you've got product that you feel works with golf, or if you're looking for hints and tips in terms of what intermediaries, making sure that intermediaries are aware of the product that you have, obviously presence on the website as well. There's shows that we attend, the Scottish Golf Tourism Week, as well as the International Golf Marketing Shows. So just reach out to us on marketing@visitscotland.com, and for those sorts of specific questions, we can get back with information. I see there's another question in the chat there around how to get involved in the owned and earned activity, which I'll just cover as well. So tell us your stories, tell us what makes you unique, the unique experiences that visitors can enjoy, anything you're doing around responsible tourism. If you've got some great imagery or great video that you feel could be used, post it on the social channels, and Leslie will pick it up using the hashtag. Leslie will pick it up and share it if she feels it's the quality and of the interest of what our followers would love to see. So just get in touch with us, again, using either that travel PR at VisitScotland.com that I put on the slide, or marketing@VisitScotland.com. It's very content heavy, very content hungry, the activity that we do now. So the more you can tell us about, the more about those experiences that we can then amplify to all our partners. We can all work on this together to get the news out about Scotland.
Wonderful. Thanks very much, Gwen. These tips and these links on the screen right now, they'll be part of the deck that we will be putting up onto visitscotland.org. So I hope you will all have time perhaps to have another wee look at that when it goes up there, and to make the most of that. So it just leaves for me to say thank you very much, everyone, for your time this morning. And on behalf of the team here at Visit Scotland, thank you and goodbye. Thanks.